we have such an exciting topic this evening because a lot of us, a lot of filmmakers, in the Caribbean, a lot of people getting into film in the Caribbean, and they want to know, well, always the issue is financing. How do we finance our films? Films are not necessarily cheap to make, and you can't go to the banks. The traditional institutions, will not give you that support unless you sign off your car or your house or something in collateral. And even then, it's tricky. So, we wanted to talk to some experts, and we wanted to talk to some people also who are out, in the region, who are really making things happen. And Jamaica is on fire right now, like so much is going on. I've just been following a bit on social media and in the press and so on, and seeing the different projects being developed. And we have two of the key players in the industry with us this evening. Renee, Miss Renee Robinson, welcome, Film Commissioner of Jamaica. I'm going to read her bio in a minute. And Mr. Robert Maylor, producer extraordinaire, who is on production right now. I think he's just stepped off set to come and talk to us. So really, really appreciate your time. We know how busy you are, especially when you're in pre-production, and especially on something as big as what you're working on right now. So, really thank you. I appreciate it. And I owe you one. So you can call on me and you need me to do something for sure. And I think we're going to switch up the format a little bit this evening.
Recording this Zoom, right? I just want to make sure that was recorded.
Okay, yes, it's being recorded and it's live on social media. So I have their witnesses. But yeah, talking with Renee before you came on and before we went live, realizing that y'all are, close friends, and also that y'all do a lot of panels together. I'm thinking we might do it a little different. Instead of, having one speak and then the other, ask questions to one person and then go to the other. We're going to kind of mix it up. But first, of course, I want to introduce you all properly to our viewers, because, these are some greats that we have with us this evening, and we want to really learn a little bit more about them and see, how far you can go. There's no stopping your dream and your motivation and your manifestation. So Miss Renee Robinson. Renee is the Film Commissioner of Jamaica. She's a multilingual orange economy expert, content strategist, and thought leader. She has worked in Canada, Europe, USA, Africa, and the Caribbean in film, television, digital content, and the arts and culture, and is highly sought speaker on the International Film Festival circuit. So we're very honored to have her with us. For over 15 years, she has led on content programming, cultural policy, strategic planning, investment promotion, and industry intelligence at prestigious institutions, such as the Toronto International Film Festival, Women in Film and Television in Toronto, the Harbourfront Center, the Cultural Development Commission in Jamaica, and since 2016, she is the Jamaican Film Commissioner. So congratulations on that, Renee. And I think recently you were also on the board of the World Film Commissioners, right? Recently appointed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's fantastic. Are you the only Caribbean country on that board, or the other?
On the executive board, yes, but there are other Caribbean countries that are a part of the global body.
Wow, but we're still really proud of you. And of course, I am a very strong women's advocate. So love that women are leading the way in the film industry. That's super important. So thank you so much and one thing I forgot to mention, Renee is also a director on the board of C15 Studios. And of course, we love having her on our board because, she knows about film. And we want to talk about that this evening, about how do you go about financing your film, and a little bit about the economy of film in the region. So let me introduce Rob, and then we'll come and chat with both of you all, and I'll get you all to, share your insights. So Rob Maylor is a Jamaican-American lawyer, writer, and producer on a mission to bring new narratives from the Caribbean diaspora to life on a screen near you via his production company, Mental Telepathy Pictures. His feature film production, Storm Salter's Sprinter, was executive produced by Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith, and won over a dozen global Best of Festival awards en route to distribution in North America, Europe, Africa, and Latin America in 2019. So he continues to find success through collaborations with visionary authors like Joshua Cassie, groundbreaking companies, including Lena Waite's Hillman Grad, and award-winning films, including the 2021 Ida Award winner for Best Music Documentary Universe and the 2021 Tribeca winner, The Novice. So Rob is also regularly called upon to share his expertise because he has a lot. And that's why I feel so special that I have both of you on the show this evening, because I think this is really, great information that we're going to give our viewers. And of course, as we record these, we know we can go back to our YouTube channel and listen to some of these. And I have found myself even going back to our YouTube channel and listening to some parts of our sessions, because we get so much great information from our guests. And we haven't finished, Rob. So he has collaborations, which include Sundance, the Biennale, the Toronto International Film Festival, the British Film Institute, Puma, Walshy Fire of Major Lazer, and I'm sure many others. He's working right now. I don't know if he'll tell us what he's working on, if he's allowed to. Can you tell us what you're working on right now?
I can say that we just wrapped on Millie Black, which is an HBO series that since Renee's posted it on her social media, I feel like I can talk
It's public now, it's public.
Yes. So I can talk about that.
Okay, excellent. So this is a question, and I mean, it's a little loaded, but do you think, and this actually came from somebody specifically wanted to find out this, so I find it's an interesting question. Do you think it's possible for the Caribbean to successfully support a Caribbean film industry, or do regional filmmakers need to go overseas in order to earn a living from their films? Renee.
Yeah, I wanted to jump on that question immediately. And before I start, so thank you, Lorraine, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled to be able to be a part of these types of sessions and to be able to share knowledge, and particularly with someone like Rob, my friend, colleague out there on set right now. So happy to be here with you guys today. I think it is possible. I think that's exactly what we are seeing happening now. The Caribbean as a whole, so all of our individual islands, I think we've seen a lot of individual development, whether it is productions that are coming to specific islands to shoot, or if it is smaller, ecosystem development, individual filmmakers that are coming out of a specific island. I think the challenge that we've had is scalability and sustainability, so that instead of having individual one-off successes, we're actually building an entire industry and building an ecosystem. But it is absolutely possible, and I think that's exactly where we are right now. We are small islands in ourselves, and so the territories do struggle with having the type of visibility for it to, to make sense from a scale perspective. So there is always this need to do international engagement and to be a part of the festival circuit and to, identify international audiences. But I think it's absolutely possible. I wonder if we've lost Lorraine. I'm not seeing her on.
Oh, that means we have
we might have had a tech difficulty right there.
Hopefully she will jump back on soon. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Do we carry on about her? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can expound on that because, some of the things that we've been seeing, even just over the past couple of years, during my tenure as well. I mean, the beginning started, like a lot of the conversations that we were having with international partners started out with, oh, well, how do I come and shoot on this particular island? Now, where the conversations are, how do I see what's happening in the Caribbean? Where can I find it? Who are the emerging talent? What are they working on? Where can I get a sense of, how to see what's coming locally? So I think the entire conversation about whether or not a sustainable Caribbean film industry is possible, I think that's changing. And I know, Rob, you talk about Caribbean film rising, so.
Yeah. Well, I believe it's completely doable. I think the primary issue or thing that people have to understand is what you talked about, scalability. And so what I mean by that is people have to think about how the film is going to be released and what's the ecosystem that is going to allow you to consume the content. And so to be successful is, there's no real way to define success outside of, did people see your movie? Did people like your movie? If you made a lot of money, that's also great. But I think those models and ways of understanding or interpreting film have changed in the streaming era, because we only get so much information from the streaming platforms. So when I talk about Caribbean film on the rise, I really think about the fact that it's so much easier now to create your own content and to create your own film and to find ways to channel it through for other people to see it. So even in Trinidad, I know, for example, and there's a Caribbean platform done by Gianfranco called Pavilion, right? But then we also have like the Netflixes and the, bigger platforms that we all know. And so I think the model in the industry is shifting from the independent era of the late 90s to early 2000s. And now it's kind of shifting more to a commission model, which is what you see from like Netflix saying, okay, we'll give you $3 million to go make your film. I think all of that is going to have to happen within our Caribbean islands and us supporting each other's content first before we'll make it to the stage where they're going to come knocking on our doors. But, there's a great example, like someone like Damian Marcano, for example. I just recommended him for a TV show just because I've seen his work, and I say, people are like, oh, I need a director, but I want them to have have some Caribbean sensibilities. And so now that more and more filmmakers are emerging from the region, I think we'll see a greater emphasis and we'll be able to have success by whatever terms you want to define it by. And we'll be able to create a self-sustaining economy within our industry.
What I've been noticing as well is that the transitions and the visibility has shifted. So even identifying, you're mentioning names right now, right? So even identifying Caribbean filmmakers who are now gaining visibility, whether it's at various labs internationally, or, if they're in fellowships, or if they're working particularly with any of the streamers, like we're actually starting to see more and more of our Caribbean people who are in these positions, which is creating a new dialogue.
Yeah. Lorraine?
Yeah, I don't know, my internet dropped, sorry. So I didn't get the end, but I know that y'all would have managed without me because y'all are super pro. So that is good. And actually that brings me, Renee, because we saw that you were recently in Los Angeles and you went to Netflix, and did you see any Caribbean people in Netflix working, or?
Yeah, well, the day that we went, it was actually a work from home day. So the office was, that particular campus was pretty empty. But the person that we met with does have Caribbean heritage. And granted, that wasn't the reason for the meeting. It just so happened that this creative executive that we met with, when we met him, he was like, oh yeah, of course, So, but I do find, and I know that Rob, you've had this experience as well, just identifying specific larger organizations or companies, and particularly those that are, leading, or those cutting edge companies, and really being able to identify that we have folks on the inside in many of these companies, in many of the film festivals, even at Berlin, we have people who are in the festival economy, in the streaming economy, in the distribution economy, in the financing landscape, who are coming out of the diaspora, and they really do want to be able to be a part of this process of bringing Caribbean content to mainstream audiences. They're really, really committed to it.
Yeah, that's really great news. So let's find out what are the steps that a filmmaker needs to take in order to access financing for their film. Let's start with Renee. If they plan, obviously they're going to plan to market this film regionally and globally. So I think what are the steps that a person should take?
Well, I think it's twofold, right? So there's a traditional model of how you access financing if you're an overseas filmmaker with a track record and, maybe one or two things under your belt, if you're looking at a tax incentive, or, so there are those models that exist outside of the Caribbean. For us, it's a little bit different. So I would say for filmmakers who are looking to access financing for your project, the first thing is to actually have a sensibility of your audience. So one of the things that we do see a lot of is persons are coming with an idea, and it might be an important or crucial or an interesting idea, but is it only being like, is the idea relevant for Caribbean viewers only? Because in that sense, it's going to be a little bit harder if you can't demonstrate that you have scope. So, you want to be able to develop the idea to have that cultural sensibility, but also so with a universal appeal. So identifying where your audience is and crafting your project around knowing exactly what that audience is going to look like. Because anyone who's going to give you money is going to want to know that you know how to give that money back to them. And if you don't know how to give that money back to them, then, they're going to be like, hey, that's a great idea. Here's a little bit of sponsorship, but I'm not necessarily going to, put money in that I either cannot afford to lose or that I have no idea how I'm going to get it back out. So thinking about your audience, about your distribution plan, about how you're going to market it, about whether or not it has sort of audience demand. Is it meeting an audience demand? And how are you getting into that? Now, obviously, this is a process, right? Like you're not gonna just sit up one day and be like, hey, I know exactly who my audience is. It's a part of the process of being involved in the film industry, of attending the markets, of doing that networking, of being a part of the industry associations and the meetings, and trying to understand what that global demand is, and also just looking at what's out there. What would you want to watch? If you had the money to finance something, what would you finance? Would you finance your own project if you had unlimited funds to do so? What would you need to do differently in order to convince yourself or anyone else that this is going to be something that's going to make back that money? So that is one of the places that I would start, is just in your own self-assessment of your project. I think it's also important to understand the packaging of it. So if you're approaching financiers, they're going to want to see that you have a strong team in place, that you have this track record, that you've understood and that you've done the research on how your budget structures relate to your project, that you have a sensibility of what might be a comparative project, a comparative film. How well did that film do? And then also, we're in an environment now where people are, someone might be willing to work on a smaller budget or a micro budget project. So, until you've really proven yourself that you can handle a big budget, it's hard to go to someone as a first-time filmmaker and say, hey, I've never produced a film before in my life, but here's a $20 million film that I want you to put money into. So understanding the scale and the scope of what you're able to produce.
Great. And that I want to get some practical example now with Rob. So can you walk us a little bit through how you mounted the financing for Sprinter?
Yeah, I think for me, it started with the idea and the package and the script, obviously. And because it dealt with athletics, I felt very strong that I wanted to make sure that there was another athlete involved, and I happen to be really good friends with Richard Jefferson ever since he got drafted into the NBA. And so I used to manage him in some way. And so he said, Rob, when it's my time to pay you back, let me know. And so it was in the year 2016, literally moments after he won the NBA championship with LeBron, he literally in his locker room wrote me the first check for Sprinter. And that was really a part and parcel of the fact that I had a really good package that I could show to him. I wasn't just saying, hey man, I have an idea, give me money. At the time, I already had Will and Jada on as EPs, and I had already shot my scene with Usain Bolt. So I knew that I had that kind of in the can. So it's a lot easier to ask for and raise money when you have a package, as Renee was saying. So I understood I had somebody that was in the marketplace, that was an athlete, was a visible name. And the hardest part is getting that first money in. And so he didn't even write me a big check. He just wrote me a small 6-figure check. But the fact that that check was in the bank made us going to other investors so much easier, because the hardest part is no one wants to be first. So when you're talking to investors, just knowing that you have something that somebody else believes in you is really vital. One of the things that I do now, I've been really fortunate to participate in a lot of great fellowships and grant writing programs. And I've worked with a lot of filmmakers who understand the value and the idea that you cannot make a film by yourself. And the best way to raise money for your film is by establishing and creating a team of people who want to support your vision. Case in point, I'm working on a film out of Canada, but also set to be shot in Trinidad, called Mama Glow. And the writer director of that film has been supported by the Canada Council for the Arts, BC, there's probably, she and I met because she won a genre film incubator program pitch contest. And we were introduced by mutual friends of mine who were on that committee and on that jury. And so I think it's really important to get people who want to see you win on your team. I was fortunate to have Richard on my team that wanted to see me win and see me be successful and achieve my dreams. And so there's an entire film ecosystem at every film festival, but also people have to start with, not with the big names, but the local and regional ones that are going to support your vision. Early on in the Sprinter process, I mean, I know Will and Jada had just signed a big deal with Sundance, but we also became really good friends with the team behind Third Horizon. And I was a regional, and we were like, hey, no matter what, and that was one of the things I told, Overbrook at the time in the meeting was, this film has to, when it plays, it has to open when this festival plays. No matter when it plays, it's playing this festival, because we know that community is going to give the film the platform it needs, that when it, especially when it's an indie film, that it's going to meet the road and meet the expectation and meet the community and the audience that is going to support it to help give it legs. And that's the most important thing when you're releasing a film, is to know that who your audience is and how and where to find them and meet them. Right. So I had that in the back, and I actually, speaking to Renee's point of how you're going to pay back your money, I was fortunate to have a background in distribution. And so I actually wrote out my entire festival strategy. And so I wrote a calendar, and, to the layman, it just might look like a calendar of dates of when every film festival kind of plays, but I chose the specific ones that I wanted to target, from the first one, my second choice, my third choice. If I didn't get into my top 4, what was my next one going to be? And I wrote out a calendar so that every time I met with an investor, I was able to show them, like, okay, if we don't get into this one, this is our plan B. If we don't get into the plan B, this is our plan C. And each time, at each step, I then was able to lay out from September to the following April, every single festival that we could play to help build the buzz. And so it's not a coincidence. It was very much a part of the plan that when Sprinter first played ABFF, right after that, we played Third Horizon, we played Bahamas, we played every possible, we played Trinidad. We played every festival we could to make sure that we were meeting our audience where they were. And we wanted, because it was a homegrown project, it was super important. So back to spring of 2016, once I had Richard on board, I was then able to easily, with Overbrook's help, get local investors here in Jamaica, in Joe Bogdanovich and Zachary Harding. And then because they put in money, then we were able to get another investor. And so I think this leads to a very important part. The best laid plans in films, as a producer, your job is problem solving. And so we had shot the Jamaica portion, and we were getting ready to shoot the LA portion of the film. If anyone watching here has not seen Sprinter yet, there's a spoiler. We did shoot some parts of it in LA. The kid makes it to see his mom. And 4 days before the shoot, a week before the shoot, the investor just stopped replying to our calls. And 4 days before, just like no one, nothing. And the other producers just kind of called me and it's like, Rob, we've got, and it was right before Christmas break. It was December 23rd or 24th. And we had to raise like 300K in 24 hours. Just like literally calling every friend that we ever had, parents, calling in every favor just to try and pull this together, because the hardest thing you could do is to be shooting right before Christmas when you've got 200 people on set, all working, getting paid close to double time because it's right before the holidays, and then not being able to pay them is like the worst possible feeling that I've ever experienced in my whole life. And yeah, just had to scramble. And so investors disappear. And I mean, it was somebody that was vetted, had invested in previous films. And in this instance, they hit a wall and they just disappeared. And instead of telling us, they just went dark. And yeah, and we had to raise money. And obviously that investor was supposed to put in a third of our budget to finish post. And we had to spend we got the money that we needed to pay people for Christmas. And then we had to spend all of the January right after that, raising the rest of the money to get our film through post-production. So actually, like when people are like, Rob, why did it take Sprinter so long to come out? And it's like, because Murphy's law. Something could go wrong.
Yes, this is the backstory. I mean, that's really interesting. And and as you know, as producers, you always, they always throwing the curveballs at you, but that's a really big one. So wow, I'm glad you made it through.
Sorry, Lorraine, I just want to comment on that, because I think that what that raises is the importance and the necessity to have various streams of income. Or, so whether it is that you're getting the grant funding, or if you're getting something from, a development bank, or from a council, or from, sort of a public institution, if you're getting something, from friends and family, if you're getting something from an investor, multiple investors, and having all of that, and if you're getting something from, like as a minimum guarantee or something like that, like you literally just have to be juggling all of this as cash flow. And then using those requirements to sort of cash flow on the back end, or to do gap financing, or whatever it might be. So it really, like Rob's story just totally highlights that need of having multiple streams.
Yeah, the lesson for me is just never start shooting a film until you have all the money in the bank. That was what I took away from it. Don't do anything until you have all of it in the bank, and all even the contract signed. Sometimes people pull out, so you get all the money in the bank right away, and then start filming. So that was my lesson learned.
That's a great lesson, and well, actually, I think it's a good time to plug C15 here, because C15 is offering filmmakers, the possibility to get advanced cash flow based on commitments that you may have from the rebate, or from sponsors, or pre-sales, and so on. So, that's also a way to help with that cash flow, and, to accelerate that cash flow. But of course, we take your point, have all the money in the bank first, because as you said, that is the worst feeling. I was in a similar situation, so we could talk about that off air, but that's very interesting. And I'm so glad that you were able to get out of it. But what came out too from what you said, and even what Renee was saying, but more so you, is how important it is to network, to get out there and meet people, talk about your film, like you were saying, like a lot of these contacts and so on, you're not going to make them just sitting, behind your computer. You have to get out there and, meet people, and you'll find interest if you're out there speaking and talking about your film. So I saw somebody had their hand up, but we're going to take questions afterwards, just in about 10 minutes or so. And if you can post them in the chat, that will be great. So let's talk a little bit about the organizations and the businesses in the Caribbean and overseas that filmmakers can approach to source financing for their films. Renee, so where do people go if they want financing for their films, really?
It really does vary. I mean, obviously having a company like C15 in the marketplace now is great. It's very much needed. And, I think that this is a really good advancement. Each island has their own sources of financing. So, and again, it's in various stages. And I think this is really the stage of development that we're at across the entire ecosystem, is identifying sources of financing on the islands. So there is, for example, the Caribbean Development Bank has the Creative Industries Innovation Fund, and Carib Export also finances development. And it might not be specifically for individual projects, but for the ecosystem, for the creative economy as a whole. So there are these sort of regional entities each country will usually have a development bank or a film commission or a, so for example, we don't finance projects, but we are in the process of advancing a screen fund at the moment, which is awaiting cabinet approval. So it's absolutely not available. It's something that we're developing, and we do need to get parliamentary sign off on it. But the general idea would be that this would be a source of funds that would be available for the development of local or co-produced content. So there are these various pockets, but I think the real area is identifying international grant funds. So for example, there's the World Cinema Fund, which Jamaica is eligible. Many of the Caribbean islands are eligible to apply for the World Cinema Fund. There's funds that are available through the EU, through the ACP programs. So it's just a matter of doing some research and understanding what these various types of pockets of institutional funding is. And then also knowing when, like understanding what that deadline cycle is as well. You know, I mean, Rob mentioned having his calendar of, you know, various festival projects, festival activities. It's the same thing with the funding cycle. So understanding when those open calls are, because they're usually about once or twice a year. You know, so, and there's a couple of those. So there's ACP, World Cinema Fund, several of the film festivals. If you just look on their sites, they will show you what's there. But I think the other thing that we're also starting to explore and target as well is access to private capital. I'm not sure how this works on the other islands at the moment, but I know for Jamaica, one of the things that we do is we actually have a cohort of local financiers. And so these would be people who might be a part of commercial entities, so commercial banks, the development banks, high net worth individuals, wealth management companies, angel funds. So we have this group of private investors who we work with kind of in a film finance 101 kind of way. So, you know, we get the sense that there's because there's money in the region, you know, there is wealth in the region, and lots of persons are interested and willing to put those monies into tourism or agribusiness or BPO or any of these other types of industries, because there's a stronger understanding about how those industries are monetized. So we've been doing this work with financiers here to try to get them to be more savvy and more aware of how the creative economy is monetized and what the cycles are, and also just how to assess projects. You know, we took a group of financiers to LA a couple of years ago. Okay. To get them to meet with other financiers there. And then this trip that we just did a while ago, last month, I think it was, yeah, just did this LA trip. And so again, more meetings with financiers and just trying to get our local ecosystem to be more ready and less risk averse to putting money into local creative economy.
Okay, great. Rob, what advice do you have for Caribbean filmmakers, producers wishing to finance their films in the region? What would you suggest for them to do, or how to go?
I mean, I think World Cinema Fund is definitely a great place to start. I would also advise that if you're seeking funding, make sure you're seeking funding at the right level and that you have the right project and ambition for where you're starting out at. If you're starting out and this is your first feature and it's going to cost $10 million, it's going to be a hard road for you. So my first advice is understand your audience, understand what your project is that you're making and what is the feasibility of your project. I'm really fortunate to have been and to be a part of the selection committee for Locarno and Open Doors, and they are spending the next 3 years focusing on the Caribbean and LATAM. And so that would be the first place because you guys got me. And I've made sure to put a lot of people on that platform for starting this year. And in a week, I've got a couple of people, some who I know, some who I don't, but I read their projects and, you know, did my best to make sure that the best stories got the best opportunity to then travel across the world and meet people who can offer them a world of just different experience and just business savvy with respect to how the business of film gets done. I think a lot of people are very unaware of the opportunities, especially in the EU, and the money that's available to you. I mean,
Yeah.
the EU just has so many more opportunities that are state sponsored to connect with the global South and just, you know, our side of the Atlantic, that I think Locarno is an opportunity that I would tell everyone to look into for next year. There's two programs. There's the Open Doors Lab and there's the Hub. And both are created to either advance the careers of producers and or director producer teams who's apply jointly, and then we'll get a trip, all accommodations paid, to Switzerland to go hang out for 10 days and meet other industry professionals. So that's my shameless plug for here, but that's what I would tell everyone to do.
Yeah.
To access funding, because you will get access to funding there. I mean, the Hub specifically, I mean, you're getting a fund that's anywhere between 50 and 150K euros to kind of finish your film and help you to get over your financing gaps.
Fantastic. And
Yeah, I think the opportunities in Europe are just phenomenal. And honestly, I mean, we started talking about whether or not can you make it just by being here. And, you know, we really do need to, whether it is invest in ourselves and get to these markets, or identify grant funding to help you to get to these markets, but we need to be physically there. We need to be physically present. We need to be seen. We need to be in the meetings. We need to be at the table. You know, and it really does make a difference once you start getting into the lab circuit. So whether it is Locarno or Rotterdam or Berlinale Talents or Sundance Lab or any of these types of opportunities, like once you start getting your foot through those opportunities, then all of a sudden an entire business network is available to you.
You really just got to get one. I mean, I've done a few of them, but even just I just did the Film Independent Creative Producing Lab and the Fast Track Lab, and then that got me like Sundance Ignite and all these other opportunities where people are just like, oh, like you have a project and it's actually at a level of development where we can actually just start connecting you to financing, because that's the hardest part. Like I've already written the script, I've already got the package, I may even have actors. We just need to close this gap or get additional money. And so the Sundance Ignites of the world and the Fast Track for Film Independent programs exist specifically to get you money for your project if you've reached a certain level. You just have to be smart about the types of projects. So again, I don't know that this is a hard and fast rule for Sundance or for Film Independent, but I will say that if you apply with a project that's cost over $3 million, it's highly unlikely, based on what I know about the projects that they've accepted over the last 2 or 3 years. Their budget levels for the projects that people are applying with are just not that high. But sometimes you will get lucky and there's somebody that will break out. But the majority of projects, if there's 8 acceptees, most people have projects that are around the $1 million range or under, with a handful that are going to be over. But those are the exception to the rule.
Right. So do you think too that looking for like co-productions with European companies or other companies is a good idea for Caribbean filmmakers?
I'm adamant. I mean, I need Renee's help, but I really want to utilize the British UK co-production. I mean, I know that no one's really done it yet, although we're seeing an influx of British talent to Jamaica to film because of a variety of reasons. But the nexus there is very strong. And because we have this co-production agreement, you can actually get very talented crew, highly experienced crew from the UK to come here. And if we can, you know, Mrs. Film Commissioner, if you could help us to find ways to cross-pollinate learning on that.
Yeah, so let me tell you about that. So the local amount it's a minimum of 20% of the project budget, but that 20% does not have to come from one place. Like it can come from up to 3 individual producers, and it can also come from deferral. So there's creative ways to do it, but there does have to be, you know, 20% from the Jamaican side. But again, it could come from, like, it doesn't literally have to be Jamaican money. It could be that you are the Jamaican holder of it, but you're sourcing access to financing from 3 other private investors who are going to be putting that money through you as the primary co-producing partner. But I think the key thing though as well with these things, and sometimes we forget, but accessing co-produced treaties, it's more than the financing. But once you've been approved as a co-produced project, you now qualify as a domestic work. So the project itself, even though it might have been shot in Jamaica, now qualifies as a domestic work in the UK in this example. And it's part of that stream of requirements, like domestic work has to be exhibited on domestic channels within a certain quota. So you get financing and you get distribution.
Wow, well, that's very interesting. Actually, somebody sent a question saying, they're recommending EU for financing, but how is this region for distributing your film and recouping funds? So I guess what they're trying to find out is, can we, just regionally distribute and recoup in the region? What do you think?
I think we can distribute in the region, but I think the eyeballs are small, like the numbers are small. I think we do need to think bigger than our individual islands. Regionally, yes, we can, but I think we need to think broader than the Caribbean in terms of who we want to see these works. And that could be, tapping into Latin America. It could be tapping into the African continent. It could be, South-South cooperation in any of those cases, or it could be looking at any of these sources of financing from, the European territories, which actually are actively trying to diversify content in their territories. Like they do have quite a bit of a demand for seeing diverse content. Yeah. So, but I think we do need to think, we need to be bigger and broader than where we are right now. And, I feel like, at least in Jamaica, I know we feel like we little but we talawa, and, we punch above our weight class every single time, but there's more out there than our islands. But we do need to collaborate here first, but we need to always keep an eye on where we can get audiences overseas.
I can say that when I approached, for example, Caribbean cinemas about distributing Sprinter, they were very open to the idea and trying to find unity amongst the various islands and creating a cohesive release strategy. I do think that we are a ways away from being able to make a multi-million-dollar film in the Caribbean and have it recoup in the Caribbean, with only being its only place, only because of consumption habits and people going to theaters and just the way that content consumption has changed. But, my free game is that I say, for the Caribbean, there is like a triangle, and that triangle extends from the Caribbean to New York and Toronto, and then over to London. And I think you think about Miami as well in that category. And these are places with populations that really look for Caribbean content and know how to appreciate it. And the local press and marketing agencies all understand the value of Caribbean content and Caribbean culture. And so you're able to find in these pockets around the globe that I just mentioned, and also to a certain extent, South Africa and Nigeria. But the first four that I mentioned.
Yes, and so let me jump in there, because let me plug that we are actually, C15 is going to Nigeria next month. We were Bazodi has been invited to show at the Real Time Film Festival in August. And so next month, we're gonna go and explore a little bit how we can collaborate between Nigeria and the Caribbean in film, and learn a little bit from their experience. And also, and also I'm going to be doing the C15 show live from Nigeria, because I will be traveling to the film festival. So that's kind of exciting. So you all just got a little avant-premiere. We have some questions coming in. Oh, and reminder also, everybody who registered for the show, you all would get a free download, which is a PDF that Public Relations Department communication specialists put together. That's absolutely fabulous. It's a goal tracker. So for those creatives who are still trying to figure out how to make it happen, this is a great way to give you some goal setting tools. And so check it out. It's really nice. So what do we have here? Question, is there a specific database which contains information on film grants available to Caribbean films?
This would be the research that we all have to do for ourselves. Right. So, I think it would be great if something like that existed, but it really does put you in the driver's seat when you are developing the database for yourself of the types of opportunities that make sense for you.
Let me
Very good.
Google that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me Google that for you.
Yeah. The thing is that you have to, yes, so because I know, because I've sat on the producer side and I did exactly that. I went online and I put together a whole spreadsheet of, what grants are available for what types of films, because what is really interesting too is depending, as you said, like you were doing a film on, running, you wanted an athlete involved, so different types of films you can approach for different grants or opportunities, a film maybe on women's issues, there's certain grants affiliated to that. So it's also to look at what corresponds to the type of film you're doing, and you'd be surprised to know that there's a lot more money out there than you think.
Yeah. But
When
start
you
with like Film Freeway. I would tell people just start with
Yeah.
Film Freeway and just type in your subject matter, and you'll be surprised that you'll see both festivals, but you'll also see grant making bodies. But Film
Yeah.
Freeway is a great place to start to kind of figure out what's out there.
And no film school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Stage 32, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of resources.
You can't
Just start doing online research.
I mean, I know IndieWire puts out at the top of every year, they put out a list of all of the grants,
Right. All the grants.
every single place, and a calendar of when the due dates are. So the information is there.
So we have Dana Shagan, who's giving himself a good plug, but I
Hi,
think it's
Dana.
Hi, Dana.
He said, yo, I have a distribution company and record labels focused on Caribbean music. I would love to collaborate with more filmmakers, and I'm willing to contribute music at low cost, in some cases on a gratis basis. If anybody's interested, hit me up. So that's a great plug, because films need music. We all know this. And so often, you're not sure where to go to find the music for your film. Well, Dana is offering you a huge catalog, and he has really a huge catalog. So check him out, dana@shaganmedia.com. It's in the chat. And then we have Mandisa Pantin. Let me refine my question. Do you have to have your crew and cast locked before looking for funding?
Crew, no.
No.
It's helpful if you have a high profile talent attachment. That's always helpful. But again, if you are an emerging filmmaker or from a territory that, is new, that might not necessarily have that in the packaging at the time, then it might be a little bit more difficult to identify a talent attachment before going to financing. I would say start with what you have. Definitely start with what you have, build as best a team as you can, and then start putting that forward. But if you're going for financing, people are going to want to see that you've invested in it, you've put in the work. So a crew, not necessarily, you wouldn't need them at that time. If you can snag talent, great for you. But there's also been lots of undiscovered talent that have broken through in a first time role, and all of a sudden, people, Chantal Jackson, one of those exact same people, undiscovered talent at the time, and now is a household name across the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I would say that if you have an amazing DP who's like well known, that might be the exception to the rule, but crew is not required as much as I think a sense of cost. And so if you don't have a line producer who can give you an exact cost for whatever territory you're shooting in, get the cost of your film made, have a budget for your film. That is how that's the first step to getting the money. Because if certain genres, for example, like horror and thrillers, they're idea based, they're not cast based. So, and that's why people do them as their first films. Everyone from like the Coen brothers, their first films are always films that are big on the idea, but not necessarily requiring a cast that needs, household recognition. The other thing that every financier is going to ask you for is some type of proof of concept that you know what you're doing, or that you have a clear vision of what you're going to create. So either it's a proof of concept short that will lead to the feature, or a feature that you've previously shot, or just some level of work, because no matter what, at some level, film costs so much that you have to show that you can actually do what's being asked of you. That's going to happen no matter what, if you're in the early stage of your career.
All right, guys.
Some people shoot the trailers before they actually shoot the proof of concept, like you pull out the pieces of the trailer. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the trailer is supposed to give you all of the highlight moments. So you could literally just shoot the trailer before you actually go to production.
Yeah, go through your script, choose your 5 to 7 best scenes, just pre-shoot them really rough, and then call Dana for music.
Yeah.
And then you're set.
Fantastic. So a question that was sent in advance and actually was addressed to Renee, but I think it's such a general question, but still, what advice or career path would you recommend for someone who's interested in producing but doesn't have opportunities for training in the island or the country that they're living in?
Sure. I think access to opportunity is, of course, it is a hurdle for many people, especially in the Caribbean, especially in underserved communities. But the reality is that there are so many online resources for you to start investing in yourself. If this is something that you want to be involved in, there's a lot of ways to upskill and to get the knowledge that you need through online resources. They are there. I would say as well, just start with practice. Just cell phone, shoot something, get that practice of what it might be and write your projects, write your treatments, do your script breakdowns, like just write these things out so that you're starting to feel yourself in this process. But take advantage of the online resources, take advantage of just practicing shooting things on your cell phone, practicing editing things with free tools that are available online, and then making sure that you're connecting through your industry associations that are in all of our islands. The industry association, which is a way for you to network with other people who are working in the business.
Yeah, I would just add to that. It's super important. One of the things that I saw a lot of friends doing early on when we were all just trying to figure out, we knew we wanted to be producers, but we weren't sure. A lot of people did a lot of spec commercials. And so if there's a product that you like and you have like a friend that really wants to be in front of camera or a couple of friends, get them together and shoot a spec commercial for a product you like. And that will teach you the very fundamental basics of producing, because you're going to have to understand, like, you still have to make a call sheet, even if it's just 4 people. Just like go through all the things. There's a great book that I still use to have on my desk right now as I'm doing this job. That is Film Production 101. And it's like the guide for anyone that is like a UPM or any type of production manager, and just understand all of the steps, like from like the script, different colors of scripts that scripts go through as they're being developed before you actually shoot, putting together a call sheet, understanding how to break down the script and figuring out how to cost. The best advice you can have is, as an entrepreneur, is to make your mistakes on a small scale and then scale up. And so learn to produce by just doing. And even if you're on an island that doesn't have, there's probably a business that doesn't know how they want to get online, and you can just walk down the street and shoot a spec commercial for them just by going around their store. I'm pretty sure there's a guy on TikTok that does that in America. So you can for sure do it in the Caribbean. And shoot a spec commercial for them. And then basically you can get them to pay you for that ad that they just made. And that becomes another revenue source that you scale up and start doing commercials before you move on to film.
Great advice. So, I mean, I hope that person is motivated by your, sharing all those points. So as we wrap up, I mean, we're almost at the hour. So really, and I know Rob has to get back to work. So streaming. So of course, everybody sees Netflix as it, like everybody wants to be on Netflix. So Rob, was it getting Sprinter on Netflix? Did you think that was like?
It's hard to say because it was in the middle of the pandemic. And so there's been a lot of moments, even just today, where there are people that are telling me that they were going to like each other's houses, and whenever they were out, even though it was in the middle of the pandemic, they were still streaming Sprinter, and everybody would come over and they just turn on Sprinter at them. But because it was the pandemic, I never got to really feel or experience it outside of just like the messages I was getting from people. So I didn't really get to feel the Netflix effect, if you will. I'm feeling it now. Like I said, I was on set today and somebody was just like, your face is really familiar, but I don't know where I know you from. Like, how are you here? And I was like, oh, maybe we met a few years ago when I was doing Sprinter. And they're like, I love that movie. I watched it in the story. I have gotten out of a speeding ticket with Sprinter here in Jamaica as well, actually, which is great. But getting on Netflix, I mean, I had a lot of things that were going really well right for me at that moment to make that deal happen, and then to make sure it was available on Netflix throughout the Caribbean as well. First and foremost, I had a great partners in the US. But I also had some luck. One of my former bosses actually went over to Netflix right before I made Sprinter. And I worked, when I was at Magnolia Pictures, I was the liaison for Netflix, doing all the onboarding for all of our content. So I was, helping with, uploading 36 films every single year. And so I had a familiarity with the team there. Had the right relationships with different distributors so that when it came time to do it
Right.
in North America and then like the other territories that we kept adding, it was a very simple conversation because, the hard thing is that I get people every day that are like, hey, get my film on Netflix. But
That's
the thing,
what I was gonna say, yeah.
yeah,
Be that-
but the thing that people don't realize is if Netflix just opened up the floodgates and said, hey, you single filmmaker that has made one film, come, like it's too untenable of a business model. They also don't want to have the risk of somebody suing them, because that happens with every distribution platform and their company, like, oh, we didn't make enough money on it, or this happened. And so you have to think about the business that people are in. And so with somebody like me and the people that I was working with at the time, there was no fear that me not understanding how the business works. And so just made conversations way easier, where it's just like, look, I'm going to do this. I will give you this territory if you give me that territory. I want X for it. They'll offer Y, and I'm like, no, I want Z. And then we come to terms, but it's all in negotiation. But yeah, I don't think that Netflix has to be the be all end all for anyone. What's great about Netflix is they get you everywhere around the world. You have a huge audience. But, I still love seeing the film. For me, our screening at ABFF is still probably my best one and my favorite one. And our opening night in Jamaica, where I got to go to Carib with my parents, and they sat in the theater that they sat in when they were teenagers and watched the movie that their son made. So that was the best screening for me.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Renee was there.
I know, say hi to your parents for me.
So, yeah, I think Netflix is great, but I think for everyone, the thing that you want to have an experience that I can just say is you want to have people connect with you about something that you put, hundreds and thousands of hours of your life into, and they only get to experience it for 2 hours. And they don't understand everything that you went through, but having someone connect with your material is the thing that you want, whether 10 people see it or 10 million people see it. The reward is really just having people connect with it and want to talk to you about it. And so, I would say everyone should shoot for that, because Netflix and all the streaming platforms, they're in a contraction period, and so they're going to be pulling back on the number of projects they're going to be giving out. And so for most people that are watching this, you're probably in an early stage in your career. So Netflix might be something different. It might be called Blockbuster in 4 years. Who knows? And so the goal is to make sure that your project is seen, and the way you're going to do that is understand who you're making your film for, and make sure that you do everything in your power to make sure that they connect with your project first, and reward the people that are going to connect with your project. And that's be my best advice I can give any young filmmaker.
And I
Well,
think it would be
great.
similar as well with the approach that you would have to either a streaming platform or a distributor would be similar to the approach to a financier. They're going to want to see that you have, that you've done the work on the background to create the project packages, or to demonstrate that you have the capacity and the capability to deliver, and to deliver at a high quality. It's going to be, it is virtually impossible to get Netflix to, be a partner for a film that you just have an idea of and you've never made anything before in your life, so, or any of the streamers, the networking piece of it, and, making sure that you're building out your business network. As Rob mentioned, a lot of it was just understanding the business and knowing the people who are in these various roles, which comes from working in the industry continuously and continually being visible at these various trade markets and events. So, understanding how you fit into the business of the industry, being able to demonstrate that you have the capability to deliver, and also, coming with something that's strong, that's either when something that's more than your idea, whether it's your pitch package or, your proof of concept. Many times they're not necessarily looking to commission an idea. They might either be looking to commission an idea, or they're looking for finished product. So it's just a matter of having those, building out that network and having those discussions. But there isn't one route to say, hey, I want to get, like, can you send me contact information for someone at Netflix because I want them to, like, buy my movie. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Well, that is great. Thank you so much, both Renee and Rob. You all gave us so much information this evening. I hope everybody's motivated to go and get those, pitch decks, to go and shoot that trailer, to go and, fix that script, work on that script. And, scripts need a lot of work, let people read your script and take, feedback, and, don't be afraid to share the work and that you're doing. Talk about it too. This is some great advice that I got years ago. Talk about your project to random people and see if it resonates with them, So yeah, so that is some of the thoughts, and I'm sure everybody will be buzzing right now. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in, and see you next month. Thank you, Renee.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.